No, man, but you got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it? You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Hey, gardeners. Hope you're all having a great week. We just celebrated our first day of spring for this season. I'm out here looking at our peach tree, and it's blooming right now. Flowers should be popping out anytime. Start forming those peach fruits here real soon. Really exciting time of year. Hope you're all having a wonderful time out in your gardens as well too. So all right, let's get growing. All right. It's Saturday. All my garden enthusiasts and passionate plant people. Welcome to the Let's Get Growing show right here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today. And we've got a really awesome show ahead for you today. We've got our good friend Nate Muri. Nate Muri from Garden Like a Viking joining with us here in just a little bit. And we're going to have Priscilla Burke joining with us here in just a little bit from the Fig Hunter joining us for our Are You Following Me segment here in just a few minutes as well too. So we got some really awesome guests ahead here for you today on today's show. So definitely stay tuned for these amazing guests today. And of course, if you are here with us right now, definitely click that like button, hit the thumbs up, as well as the subscribe and bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming episodes and live streams. And definitely share with all of your gardening friends out there. Let them know about the Let's Get Growing show and all these just amazing guests that we get to see here each and every Saturday and Sunday at 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, with the caveat of this weekend though. We are normally here Saturdays and Sundays, but I do got to warn you right now, right at the top of the show, that we don't have a Sunday edition show planned for this week. We are taking it off. I've got to get some other things done for this weekend, so we will not have a show. But I'm going to leave, as I've done before, leave the show open for chat. So you guys who are normally used to coming here and hanging out and chatting with each other and all of that here, I will leave that chat open for you as well tomorrow too, if you just want to come and say hi to each other as well too. So that will be available, and then we will be right back again here next weekend though too, Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Urban Gardener channel for sure. So definitely come and join with us again next weekend as well too. I'll talk about who we got coming up here just a little bit later on the show. And if you are here watching the replay, big huge shout out to all of you as well too. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here with us here on today's show. Like I said, we got some great guests here for you, so you'll definitely want to stay tuned for our great guests coming up. And if you can, jump into our comment section. I love hearing from all of you out there. Let us know if you got any ideas for some guests you might like to see on the show. Definitely let me know in the comments below, or just drop in and say hi. Like I said, I love to hear from all of you. So definitely do that if you can. And also questions or comments from anybody here joining with us live right now, jump into the chat. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you all have growing on, and definitely put some questions in there for our guests when they come up here in just a little bit on the show, and put them in big bold capital letters if you can. That way we can see the questions from the conversation. And I know we got plenty of people in the conversation today. I'll try to get to as many of your questions as I possibly can. And yeah, definitely look for all of the links to our guests right down below in the description too for the show here. We've got links so you can go in and say hi to all of our guests. I really appreciate that when you do that. You can go check out one of their recent videos or posts or something like that, and then leave them a comment. Let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. I always appreciate that when you guys do that for us here too. Show some support to all of our guests who are taking their time to be here with us us and to share all of their experiences with us as well here on the show. So great to have you all here with us. And let's see who we got in the chat here. I know we saw some people jumping in. I was just in the conversation with Nate Muri, our guest, our featured guest here coming up later in the show. His show is just before ours. He had a really great guest today talking all about worms and worm farming and all of that as well. So I was kind of listening in as I was getting the show prepared for today. So he had a great conversation already on his show today. So we'll be looking forward to talking to him all about all of that too. And I see a lot of you joining us from Nate's channel as well too here. Welcome to the truth. We chase Nate around like we inspect our plants. I saw that early on. That was great. Awesome. Yes, Viking crew, you are always here, always showing support for Nate. It's great to have you all here today as well for us to join with us as well too. So it's really great to see all of you. Bowtie Life in the Garden. Good morning, Global Gardeners. I am working on the computer for a bit, but wouldn't miss this. Absolutely. You don't want to miss any of our shows. I'm telling you, we just get some amazing guests. We're so lucky here. So definitely don't want to miss out on that. David was also saying that his mouth is watering. He does have figs on his trees already. He grows down there in Florida. So that's really great. Mine are starting to wake up just a bit. Mine are getting ready to grow. See, we got Rick joining us from Australia as well too. And let's also welcome our moderator, Adam Burley, joining us from Central Point, just right up the road from me here in Southern Oregon, and our facilitator, Jay Dixon. Thank you so much, Jay, for all of your help in the chat, keeping the chat going and all of that as well, too, putting in some links and all of that as well, too, to some more information on different things that we're doing and talking about on the show. So definitely keep an eye out on that. Thank you so much, Jay, for doing that, joining us from Ontario, Canada. Awesome. We got Shawnee Groves in here. Excellent. Oh, yes. Well, thank you for listening. I really appreciate you being here. All right. And yeah, thank you everybody for being here. It's just really great to see all of you joining with us here on the show. Great to see such a great turnout, like I said, from Nate's show earlier too. So really great to see you all here. I've got as you've seen with the very beginning of the show there too, I was out looking at the peach tree and all the blooms are coming out. We've got a lot of spring flowers that are popping up all over the place, and I'm getting work done out in the garden space right now, and also trying to get a bunch of the chores done and get things going so I can get my growing season started up here. We've got lots of different starts started up in the house as far as indoor things that I get started ahead of time before we get moving outdoors. So I'm kind of in a kind of a mad race right now to kind of get a lot of these other chores and things I need to get done to get all of our growing spaces prepped up after the winter time, and then we'll start getting a lot of those other plants and things like that hardened off and out into some growing spaces here as well too. We've got some things I can get out a little bit earlier before our last frost, and then I've got lots of things that we're going to have to wait till right up by close to our last frost. Tomatoes I'll put out maybe just a little bit earlier than my last frost, than what I would normally have done before. But again, I just try to make sure that I've got things ready to like cover them up or do certain things to protect them if we do get a kind of a really good frost that'll happen leading up to that last frost. But over the last few years, it's just I've done well by getting a little bit ahead on them, and I've only had really just 2 years ago there was a little bit of an issue. We protected them. Plants grew really, really great. So, so in the long run, that's pretty much my strategy when it comes to that as well too. So even though it's a warmer season one, and in some places, and depending on how you're able to take care of them or protect them. Like I said, if there's a heavy frost or something like that that's going to happen before your last frost, or when you get them into the ground, then you can then get a head start on them. And it's always good for me to get a head start, because we also really get into a really heavy heat that's just really probably going to start really hitting us hard as we start approaching mid to late spring. This has been the case over the last few years, so I'm not expecting that. That's why I want to kind of get a little bit of a head start when it comes to those and getting them out into the garden and all of that. So right on, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. It's great to see everybody. Like I said, we've got some really great guests here on the show today. Lots and lots coming up on the show as well too. And like I said, I'll talk about that a little bit here later on the show. And if you are here, like I said, join in with us, and you have any questions for our guests, definitely jump into the chat there. I see, like I said, we've already got a great conversation going on. We got lots and lots of gardeners in the chat there. If you are joining with us here and you're from Nate's channel, jump in, say hi. I want to hear from all of you as well too. Big shout outs for all of you. If you do have any sort of small channels, let us know in the chat as well too. Jay's always good about giving out shout out links and all of that too in our chat for smaller channels who are joining with us as well too. So yeah, definitely do that. And like I said, questions, big bold capital letters if you can. And then I love to see those questions for our guests as we get them coming up here as well too in just a few minutes. And let me know what you got growing on, all of that sort of stuff as well too. I'm love to hear all about it here. And like Val says too, yes, you are the best, Jay. So Jay, like I said, does a lot of great work there in the conversation. So make sure you're announcing yourselves and letting everybody know that you're here too. So right on. Let's see here. Big Will Dog says, how about when Nate gets here, all the tribe members chat underculture? Yes. How about that? You guys can talk all about that sort of stuff, and definitely you can drop in some questions as well about that sort of stuff here too as well. So yep, tribe is all here. Perfect. Like I said, it's great to have you all here. It's like I said, just such a pleasure to be able to have all of the sort of guests that we have here. And we have been so fortunate to have Nate join with us from Garden Like a Viking throughout the last couple of years that we've been doing this show. He's been on several times. We even had him on not too long ago. Maybe Jay could get us a link for that in the chat as well too, for those of you who didn't get a chance to check that conversation out. We did have Nate join with us with Mark Valencia from Self-Sufficient Me as well too. Mark joined us from Australia, and Nate joined the conversation, and we had them on for a Sunday roundtable conversation. I think this was back at the beginning of November this last year as well too. We had that conversation, and it was great to have them together as well too. So we're really fortunate to have the Viking crew here, and Nate here just a little bit later on the show as well too. So like I said, we got lots and lots going on here today. We got our guests coming up here in just a couple of minutes. We'll talk with our first guests for our first segment of the day. So we'll be right back here in just one moment, and we'll get the conversation going.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants, and author, Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. One application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
Hi everyone, this is Sarah from Sarah's Seed Shop, here with another trivia question. Which of the following is responsible for the color of beets? A. Lycopene, B. Beta-carotene, C. Beta-cyanin, or D. Chlorophyll? We'll be back with the answer a little later in the show.
All right, all right. Do you know the answer to Sarah's trivia question today? Drop into the chat if you want to share with us what you think the answer is, and we'll get the answer from Sarah here in just a little bit here on the show. Also, I want to let you know about last week's show. If you didn't get a chance to check out last week's show, we had really great guests with us as well too for our Saturday show. We talked with Andre Baptiste from Andre the Farmer, all about gardening and his gardening and growing down there in Florida. He's got lots and lots of things growing on, plus some really cool hot sauces that he makes too as well. We got to talk with Jay Tracy from the cucumber shop, and we talked all about really cool exotic cucumbers and melons that he grows like cucumbers, and just all of these wonderful different varieties of cucumbers. As everybody knows, cucumbers are a big part of my garden story, so it was really great to be able to talk to Jay about his cucumber shop as well too. So go back and check out that show as well. Last week was the third Sunday of the month too, and on our Sunday edition of the show, on the third Sunday, we have our monthly gardening book club, and we were really fortunate to get with us this last month the author of The Climate Change Resilient Vegetable Garden, Kim Stoddart, to join with us for our monthly garden book club, and my good friend Mark Roche Colbert, our co-host as well too, for the monthly gardening book club. So if you didn't get a chance to go check out those shows, definitely go back and check those out. Really great conversations, really great book there too for our book club, and yeah, definitely go check those out if you haven't already. And all right, everybody, it's time for us to get the conversation started, and let's see who we are following today.
Are you following me? Are you following me, dude?
All right, everybody. Let's welcome to the show Priscilla Burke from the Fig Hunter, joining with us here today. Really great to have you, Priscilla. Thanks for joining us on the show.
I'm happy to be here, so thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Really great to have you here. I want to talk all about the Fig Hunter and figs with you. I'll give you here just a minute or so. Maybe you can introduce yourself to everybody and let them know about yourself and what you guys have going on there with the Fig Hunter.
Well, my name's Priscilla Burke. My husband, David Burke, is the actual fig hunter himself.
Yeah.
I just work here. Um, we actually specialize in California native figs, so wild seedling finds. And
Oh,
California
yeah.
is really the only place in the U.S. that you can have that possibility. And there's a long history behind it, but the importation of the fig wasp is what made it possible. And so we are out there kind of looking for the next great variety. And we
Yeah.
take our kids along to most of those adventures.
Yeah. I was really fortunate enough to be able to go over and check out your farm there that you have, your fig farm basically. And and meet you and the family and everything. And you guys have a lot of really great, cool varieties of figs. And I mean, it's just amazing to see the amount that you have all over the place, and to really, as you were, explained it to me before on the visit, was just hunting down all of these just rare and cool wild varieties of figs. Tell us a little bit more about how that kind of got started. What really set you guys, or David even, off onto this adventure to become the fig hunter?
Well, he used to be really into cars. um,
Yeah.
yeah, he has this specific vehicles, but he has this really keen knack for once he has his mind set at seeing something, it's almost like second nature to find it. And so that's kind of what happened with figs. So he grew up in Napa Springs,
Okay.
on a 2,000-acre cattle ranch, and there was a giant fig tree on the ranch, and I've actually seen it. I didn't get to see it in its full glory because it did burn down in the Atlas Peak fire back in, I think
Mm,
it was 2017, but it has come back. So that's a positive. Figs are pretty resilient. But so he had
yeah.
fond childhood memories of that. And when he was working down in the Bay Area, he happened to see a fig tree on his way home. And so he brought home some ripe figs. And I actually really like figs. But he wanted our daughters to try them, and it turns out that they really like figs too. So that became his new hobby besides old vehicles.
You're
Um,
right. Yeah. So this is just something that then kind of happens as you guys maybe take a trip somewhere, or go somewhere. It's like, oh, you're spotting figs and stopping the car probably every couple miles or so just to go and grab some cuttings and all of that, right?
that is very true. And it happened completely organically.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's almost like he has this sixth sense for things, like once he has his mind to it. So we could not even like be in an area where he visually sees a fig tree, but he goes, I think there's one over here. And I've been in the vehicle when he's done it, and he'll drive, half a mile in one direction, and lo and behold, there's a fig tree. So,
Oh my. So
yeah.
how many varieties would you say that you guys have collected over the years?
So we have over 2,200 documented. Some of those are capra figs or male figs. And I can't say that all of the female figs have tasted great.
Right.
We do try to weed them out for the ones that are what we think are the best tasting. But we grow all of them just to preserve the genetics, because you never know when, like I said, one burned down in a fire, and fortunately it
Mhm.
had a large root system, so it came back. But the um, cities and counties are actively, taking out underbrush, and a lot of times that means some of the wild fig trees that are out there that are, and old homesteads that are dying off. So when we find them, we at least try to take some cuttings to grow out to make sure that at least those genetics are there for the future.
Yeah, yeah. It's just really kind of something to think about how many varieties there really are out there when it comes down to it. And then again, uh, the thing I really thought was something was, again, that they're out there growing wild. And again, you're in California, right? So this is where you're collecting the majority of your figs from, right?
Yeah, and so if you delve into the history of that, in the early 1900s, there were four nurserymen that brought in figs from Turkey, and they were tricked, um, and they didn't realize it. They were given Smyrna type, which
Mm,
require pollination. And so they grew these trees for about 20 years, and the fruit would set, but it would always drop before it was ripe. And there was finally a biologist from the USDA that figured out that there was this teeny tiny insect known as the fig
Yeah.
wasp. That
Right.
and it actually came out of old wives' tales about hanging this particular type of branch in the orchards um, at a certain time, and then all of a sudden the figs would ripen. So they found an area that had these capra figs where the figs would ripen about a week later, and they were able to get to them and ship in these capra figs and release them in the orchards in time for the wasps to emerge and pollinate the Smyrna figs.
Yeah.
And it was success. And what they didn't realize was by doing that, they now made the seeds within those figs viable for planting. And so you have wild animals that come and they eat the figs, and they've been pollinated and they go do their business somewhere else. And now you have the potential for a new seedling, and so on and so on. It's kind of like this cycle.
Yeah.
And it's a really fun rabbit hole to go down if you have the
Right.
time.
I know. I know, and it's one of the things too. I love the whole, in a sense, fig culture that's kind of developed over the last several years in the, within the gardening community.
Hmm.
And because they really are one of those things that when I first got into gardening, I didn't really know much about varieties of anything when it came down to it. I was just learning that there were tons of tomatoes I never knew about when I was first getting to grow and learning to grow. And so when it came to finally, I got to meet a friend who had some figs, and he was like pulling them off the tree and let me taste them for the first time. I had only known about a fig Newton cookie before
Most
this,
people, yeah.
right? But when I ate that thing, I was telling you, it just really immediately became one of my favorite fruits because it was just so delicious and it was so much different than what I was expecting, and it was really great. So I love that figs have really become like a really big thing over these last few years as well too.
Yeah, and what I find so interesting about figs is that there are so many different flavor profiles out
Hmm.
there. Most people think of fig as exactly the fig Newton. You just get that base fig flavor,
Yeah.
but there's honey and berry and melon and sugar and just all of these different flavors that come along with that fig flavor. And I just think if you haven't tried a truly ripe fig, right now is the time to do it and change
Yeah.
your mind on it. So,
Yes, you won't be disappointed. I'm telling you. It was even I even got my daughter to try her first fresh one from my tree that I had growing this last year, and she was like, "Oh wow!" She didn't, So I'm telling you, it's one of those things that'll really completely surprise you if you hadn't had a chance to try one before. And and they're really easy to grow. This is the biggest
absolutely.
important thing about them, and just they're so versatile. They're so easy to grow. Let's talk about that a little bit. Kind of their ease of growth. I mean, this is just something you can just basically take a cutting and slap it in the ground and probably got a tree growing.
Yeah, I mean, so
Some probably
figs
need a
are
little more care, but it's
they're
about
they're one of the easiest, if not the easiest fruit tree to grow. Just like grapes and pomegranates, you take a cutting, um, stick it in some nice fluffy soil, don't overlove it, and 9 times out of 10 we end up with a new tree. But what's even more special about propagating figs is that they are one of the fastest fruiting
yeah.
trees from propagation to fruit. Generally speaking, you can get a fruiting fig tree within 18 months. And if you
Hmm.
graft, you can get it even faster. But so we've seen cuttings go from a 6-inch cutting to a 6-foot tree with two fruit on it in 10 months.
Wow.
And that's
Yeah.
in Southern California. That's under like perfect growing conditions. But I mean, it's still pretty
Yeah.
exciting to realize that that's how fast you can have fruit off of these.
Yeah, I had a cutting that wasn't doing very well, so it didn't really grow or explode in any sort of growth, but it did produce one little fruit on it. which I thought was really cool. But again, the other trees I have that I've got now a Chicago that's now growing into its third and fourth year now, producing a ton of figs off of it. And yeah, like you said, they're just so easy to grow. You can get fruit off of them really quick. And then again, too, there are tons of great varieties, and also varieties that can grow in a lot of different areas too. A lot of people might think figs are for like hot places or more hotter regions, but they're not really. You can get some that can grow in more northern regions as well too.
So you can actually plant. Figs are very forgiving. And once they have an established root system, you can actually plant them in ground down to 7A. They will die back, but that's basically nature pruning for you at
Hmm.
that point. But even in containers, people grow fig trees. In zone 4 or 5 6, and all they have to do is they just bring them into a covered area during the winter when they're dormant, and just make sure that they
Hmm.
don't freeze,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty spectacular. And if you have the space to do it, it's totally worth it. Figs can live indefinitely in a container. I've seen, 5-gallon buckets. As long as you're willing to root prune every couple of years,
Yeah.
yeah, they make great container plants.
Yeah, and that's what mine are. I don't, that's as far as growing trees, that's what I'm limited to, is growing my trees out of containers. And again,
Hmm.
that's what makes them also really great. Is again, they're very versatile. They work well as a container plant as well, or tree.
Yeah, and we get a lot of questions about, well, dwarf trees, how will it, can I grow something that's not considered a dwarf in a
Yeah.
container? And absolutely, as long as you prune, which you should be doing every year anyway, as long as you prune, again, they make great container plants. They don't get overgrown. But the trick with pruning is, when you prune, you actually get a more productive tree. So
Hmm.
it's not just for managing the size, but it's also to help you get more fruit. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so say someone has like me. I have a neighbor. He's got a really big, cool fig tree right out front and all of that. So, what would someone do if, say, they wanted to grow one of their neighbor's fig trees, or they needed to go get a cutting themselves off of a fig tree? What would your advice be? Like, do you
Well,
just
if
go and
it's
grab anything and just cut anything off of it? Do you want to cut it in a certain place? That sort of stuff, or maybe even.
Um, well, if you're taking off of a property that has an owner, you should always double
Well,
check with
for
the
sure,
owner.
exactly, exactly.
But if we're talking about like what part of the tree
Yeah,
you would want to take cuttings from,
yeah.
um, uh, I like to use, if I'm growing, if I should say, if I'm propagating during an active growth season, so the mother tree itself is actively growing, it's not dormant. I try to take that first year lignified wood, so the stuff that's just newly hardened off, that's brown, because it's still in an active growth state, but it's not green to the point where moisture is going to cause it to rot before it ever grows roots.
Yeah.
Um, but if I'm kind of newer to it, and this is a suggestion I've given people before, is if you try to get some of that older growth wood, it
Mhm.
has it's more hardened off. It has a hardier like cambium layer. Um, so for those of us who sometimes maybe overwater our cuttings, it kind of gives you a little bit more of a buffer from maybe rotting off that cambium layer by having that hardier bark on it.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say it's really dependent on how comfortable you feel with your propagation skills. But figs, really, you can root off of any part of it. Um,
Mhm.
and if you want to graft, they do really well with bud grafting and with we like to use a modified rind graft where we just use terminal ends.
Okay.
Those work great as well. So
Excellent, excellent. And so, is this so? Just would you grow them? How would you do that as far as rooting them? And then, you know, do you just put them like in a container of soil? Do you use any specific method for rooting them?
So we do. There are many methods for rooting
Right.
figs,
Yeah.
and it's really going to depend. One on the conditions that you're rooting them in. We like to do outdoor
Yeah.
rooting. I like to do it because it keeps fungal gnats out of my house. Because that is one of the things that we run into is with rooting anything really is fungal gnat issue.
Right.
Um, but we like to use 3x8s or depots with a 50-50 mixture of peat moss and perlite so that keeps it nice and fluffy, and the extra perlite keeps the peat moss from being able to compact too much when you're watering. But we'll actually put those smaller pots into a 27-gallon tote that you can get from like Home Depot or Costco. And that tote will actually drill holes around the bottom about an inch from the very bottom, and then just put water in the bottom of the tote to allow the soil to wick up what it needs. Because that helps us to prevent from overwatering when it doesn't need it. Um, and it keeps the cuttings from rotting from being too moist.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it like right now in the spring, we have them out in our high tunnels and it's the perfect temperature in there. If we're rooting during the summer, we'll generally do it in like a shaded area where it gets the ambient heat, but it has indirect light. That's kind of like the biggest like tip I could give is fluffy
Yeah.
soil, heat, but indirect light when you're first rooting. And then as you know, you start to get roots and new foliage, you want to slowly introduce into the sunlight, you know, in small increments every day to help harden off that new growth. Because if you, you know, just put it directly out in the sun before it's hardened off, you're
Mhm.
going to end up killing your brand new rooted baby tree. And that's a bummer. So,
Yeah. Don't do that. Right.
right. We've made most of those mistakes that you could make. We've made them. So,
Yeah, yeah. Freebird asks, does Fig Hunter have videos on cutting and grafting?
so we do actually. If you go onto the propagation page on our website, we have direct links into our YouTube videos on different propagation methods and different grafting methods.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent, excellent. Also, you guys, so the Fig Hunter, let's talk about that a little bit. What do you guys have that you offer there at the Fig Hunter as
So
far as,
there's always a free cutting giveaway going on. I do need to change it up. Because we're low on the one that we've had. But yeah, we every so often we'll switch it up and offer a new variety. All you're doing is paying the shipping cost on it, and you'll generally get you know, 3, 4 cuttings for that shipping cost. And it's just kind of a fun experiment to make it affordable to try your hand at rooting without breaking the bank. Because we've seen a
yeah,
lot of people get really excited, and so they'll buy those super expensive varieties and
yeah,
then they're disappointed because you know it doesn't work out, and so this gives you the opportunity to really hone in those skills without
yeah,
breaking the bank, so that you know when you're ready to get those more expensive varieties you're going to be more successful at it.
yeah, yeah. Definitely get some experience. Make sure you know you got things down before you start really spending money on some of those bigger ones. That's it goes with a lot of stuff too.
Right.
You know, when it comes down to it, because you don't want to, you know, you don't want to run into those problems or have to have those first lessons with the more expensive varieties.
Correct. Yeah, that's and we also have quite a wide range of varieties at different prices, and so we do offer some of the basic commercial, Black Mission, brown turkey, Cadota, blackjack, Texas Blue Giant, things like
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
And so those are tried and true varieties if that's what you're familiar with, and those are at a really low price point. And then we have some of the other fun stuff as well that you
Yeah.
can take a look at. And there's a chat function, so you can always just shoot us a message, and we will get back to you as soon as we can if you have any questions about like rooting, or if you're kind of wondering like flavor profiles and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I saw someone mentioning earlier too about the jam and all of that, but you guys do some other things with the figs as well too, right?
We do. So during active fruiting season, you can
Yeah,
order fresh figs while they're available. Um, but any time of year, we have, because you can only eat so many fresh figs, you've got to find other
yeah.
ways to use them. We do fig jam, a honey balsamic vinaigrette with fig. Fig fudge,
Wow.
fig barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
I even did this winter. I played with, because I had some frozen figs. I played with fruit leather, and it turned out really good. So I might just add that to the website. So
Oh, that sounds good too. Definitely. So many things that you can do with figs. Let's see here. Meyer Lemons was asking, what are the best varieties for zone 6B, 7A? Any delicious dwarfs?
so I don't think that dwarf is a necessity, like we talked about, because they do
Yeah.
so well in containers. And in that particular zone, I would recommend growing in containers, just because if you're on like
Hmm.
the 6B side, you're definitely gonna have some dieback. Um, so really it would come down to what flavor profile. If you're willing to grow in containers and you can move it into your garage for the winter, it's really, are you more interested in berry flavors like an Adriatic, or do you maybe want more on the honey side, like a Cadota would be in the honey side. And we have a lot of wild varieties that offer that. I have some that have like a brown sugar flavor to them. My absolute favorite is Amen Citron, and that's because one, when properly cared for, it's a quarter pound fig.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and super jammy, but it's not overly sweet. It's got like these nice berry notes to it, but the closer you get to the ostial, it gets this like citrus, like pure citrus flavor to it, which is super interesting. Um, but David's favorite is Jolly Rancher because it tastes like a cherry Jolly Rancher. So it really, I think, when you're thinking in terms of what kind of fig I want to grow, it boils more down to flavor than anything, because we can create the perfect conditions to grow the fig.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really comes down to what do you like,
Hmm.
more than anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, that's the great thing about figs and growing figs, is that they're so versatile. There's so many great varieties and flavors out there. And if you need any help figuring that out, or needing to get any great varieties for your garden and growing this year, definitely check the links down below in the description to the Fig Hunter. And yeah, reach out to them, and I'm sure you will help them figure out what would work best for them as well, too, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, thanks, Priscilla, so much for taking your time to be here with us today. Just really great to talk about figs with you and finally get you on the show. And yeah, definitely. So,
Thank
again,
you.
Yeah, and again, everybody, be sure to check out the link right down below and go over to Fig Hunter and get yourself some really great figs to enjoy this year in your garden because, like you said, they grow pretty fast.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Priscilla, and we'll see you again here real soon. Thank you. Hey, gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits.
The answer to this week's trivia question is C. Beets are known for their bright purple color, which is caused by the pigment beta-cyanin. Because of this pigment, beets are an excellent choice for making a non-toxic, safe, natural dye that can be used for lots of different crafts and projects. Thanks for watching. Head over to Sarah's Seed Shop where you can find garden seeds at unbeatable prices. Enjoy the rest of the show and have a great day.
All right. Did you get the answer to Sarah's trivia question right? Right on. I hope you did. And definitely go and check out Sarah's Seed Shop there if you're still looking for some of those really great essential garden seeds that you need for your garden there. You won't find a better price or a better value on seeds than over at Sarah's Seed Shop. So definitely do that. And also, everybody, look forward to seeing all of you again. Like I said, we're here every Saturday and Sunday, except for this Sunday. Tomorrow, we're taking the day off, but we'll be back next week for sure for another Saturday and Sunday show. And on our Saturday show next week, we will have joining with us Resh Gala. She's going to be joining with us, talking all about her upcoming garden in the growing season this year. And we'll also have Paul from Guten Gardening joining with us as well too for our Are You Following Me segment. So you won't want to miss out on our show coming up next Saturday as well. We have our Sunday edition of the show too. And next Sunday, we're going to have our good friends Kangstar and Christopher Bransdahl. Christopher joining us from the hills of Norway as he's getting his growing season going, and our good friend Kangstar from the pepper lovers community growing out of Texas will be joining with us again too. It's always good to get our good friends together for a fun gardening conversation, so we'll have them back on the show with us again next Sunday too. So definitely join with us for that show too. All right, everybody, it's time. We've got our featured guest, our good friend, waiting in the wings right now. So it's time to see who our featured guest is today.
You never know when you might learn something, and that's what this is about for me. These are people that I admire. Please welcome my next guest.
All right. Back on the show again. We got with us our good friend, Nate Muri from Garden Like a Viking. Good to see you, my friend. Awesome to have you here with us. Thanks again for joining with us today.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you there.
Oh, okay, good. Good. Got it.
Yeah. Right on, man. Excellent to see you. Excellent show today for you as well, too. I've been loving seeing you now really expanding into the garden conversation as well, too. And you've been having some pretty great fun guests as well on your show on Saturdays before our show. So really great to see that lately.
That's right. Yeah, you've actually inspired me to do that.
Yeah.
To actually have some guests on. So it's been really cool. Yeah, I definitely like it. Yeah, you get to have good conversations with people, get to see what they're up to, and it's cool connecting to them on a level that is not, through their video. So it's
Yeah.
cool.
That's again one of the things I love about this too, and here's the thing, I always tell people as well is that I'm not the garden expert. You know what I mean? I'm not that's why I love doing this sort of shows because I get to interview all of these great people who do have all this wonderful, awesome garden knowledge. And through that conversation, we're able to learn so much, and I'm learning right along with everybody else as well too around here. So again, it's always great to have folks like yourself on here just sharing just some amazing garden knowledge with us, garden experience, if anything else,
I know that's right.
That can be just really inspiring as well too.
Yeah. Guys, you know how I obsess about the sound? Can you tell me if my sound is coming in clear?
Yep.
Am I coming through this?
I think you sound good right there where you are with the mic. Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure it was loud enough.
Yeah. Get any closer and it might get a little bit louder. I think it kind of the same thing for me too.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I can turn up my gain. I just want to make sure that it works here. Okay. How's that now? Can people hear me a little bit better?
Yeah. There you go. You're good.
All right. Good.
I think you sound great.
All right, guys. So what's going on? What kind of questions do we got, guys? Let's see. We got Teats Treats in the chat. Val Thatcher. Yes, I missed you in the other one, the vermicomposting that we just had. It was great. Donald Hughes, Pam from South Africa, Jay Dixon, Bowtie in the Garden. What's going on, guys?
Yeah. Underculture.
It's crazy. Every time I see that, I think you got to be kidding me. It's still going strong.
It's great.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a short come up sometime with the pink thong at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anyways, you know what? In fact, because I was just talking about that, I'd love to touch on just a little bit about, again, so we're talking, you're having these great guests on, you're getting now into the gardening conversation. And I know you know quite a bit about gardening. We get to learn a lot from you every time we get you on here. But tell us a little bit, like today, you had a really great guest talking all about worms and stuff. Tell us a little bit about what you learned today through this great conversation you got to have on your show.
Well, I haven't digested it fully yet, but this time, well, let's say from Tony, the first guest I ever had on, Tony.
Yeah.
I learned about keeping the potatoes in the light completely halts the progress of the sprouting of the chitting. Now, I always chitted them, but it just something didn't click in my mind until Tony said that. He was like, "Well, just put them in the light," and I was like, "Oh yeah." It does. It completely halts the long leggy, the process. And so because I've had potatoes just sit there for months, like I've put them off to the side and they just sit there for months and don't do anything except like these little sprouts, So once Tony said that, I was like, oh yeah, well, that made sense. I also learned from Tony that you can take your compost and he does his in batches, the hot composting in batches. And so he says it's no problem for it to all go anaerobic in the barrel or whatever it is until you're ready to use it. And then, so I got his book, the Composting Masterclass. It goes really in depth in things. And so I'm doing that technique now and seeing how that goes. I mean, I'm sure I know it'll work great. It just, those kind of things, they don't click. Yeah. Like even though you've been doing something for a long time, maybe it's like once you hear another person who is in the know, once they say it, then you're like, oh yeah, that is the way that makes sense.
It does. And again, too, one of the great ways that, even myself, I consider myself a pretty good gardener, but there's always things that we can learn, Got Scott Wilson, who's been on the show many times. He does a Q&A with us every month. And, he's been gardening for, many years, master garden, done all the time. And that's one of the things he talks about all the time is that, even with all that years of experience, there's always things he's still learning as well, too, when it comes to gardening. And that's just one of the great things about it is that we've always got something we can learn, always something, new we could try, or something a little different that might be a little bit, take our gardening in a different direction,
Oh, definitely. Yeah. For me, that's the most important thing is to understand that there's always more to know. That it doesn't matter, to not be clouded by your own. Well, I already know about composting, so I don't really need to listen to that. Well, but you can learn something, with the right mentality, you can just perpetually learn and distill, especially if you see somebody that you sense or knows what they're talking about in particular, then you listen and you can learn.
Yeah,
I love it.
and especially those like yourself, one of the things I like about your videos and your content and folks like yourself who are really just you're experimenting, you're working through things, and you're even working through things that you've done already before many times. And you're like, well, hey, you know what? This time I'm kind of learning just a little bit more about this process, and you're taking it from there and being able to take that knowledge to another level, when it comes to certain things, especially some of the recipes and things that you share on your channel.
Yeah, definitely. And because people ask a lot of times, they're like, gosh, how did you come into all this knowledge, this experience? And it's because you just never stop experimenting. You never stop learning. You don't say, okay, well, I know how to grow food using this one technique, so I'm never going to do anything else because it works. So I'm never going to experiment. I'm never going to risk failure. I'm never going to do any of that. So you're going to stalemate, or you're just going to stale. You're just going to become stale, and your knowledge will stagnate, and you won't learn new techniques and potentially better techniques. So for me, it's all about continue the process of acquiring new knowledge through new experience and distilling the knowledge that you have.
Yeah,
that's why I'm creating these video courses, and in the courses, it's really the distilled knowledge, even from when I was making these videos the past 3 years.
exactly.
It's that even distilled more.
Yeah, it's because you're just constantly learning things, even from where you started 3 years ago, doing things, and just keeping that going is a part of that learning and experience that you get to do through your channel, but also benefits us as gardeners if we're taking that type of tact towards how we experience our garden. Taylor asked just a little bit ago too, when is your next video, Nate? When's your next video?
That's right, Taylor. And I missed that super chat from you, but I saw it. Thank you very much for the $10 at the very, very tail end of the live stream. So I appreciate that. And I think you said, I want to know about the pathways, because that's my next video. I think you know that. And so the next video will be next week. And so we are going to do that. That'll be the next one, probably Wednesday or Thursday. And I'm going to explain in that video why I chose to do the pathways in this particular way, why I'm not using wood chips in the garden, and what I'm doing instead. So that will be for sure this upcoming week, because I've got a lot of other work going on as far as making the website and all that stuff. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to build websites, but it is, wow.
I'm working on fixing up ours currently as well too. And it's a lot of work, and it's, especially when you're trying to get everything in the way you want it to too as well. And so I'm constantly like, okay, and readjusting and moving, and there's a lot of work that goes into it for sure. If you want it to look the way you want it to, though, as well.
Right. Yeah. And there's another aspect that I'm feeling is the more that you get into how websites work and how the internet works and structured, it's like trying to make your mind work like a computer, go to this file and then do this thing. And then here, my mind does not work like a computer. It works completely like the wind. I mean, just like the sun, it works totally, no files, this and that and stuff like that. So it's just like, it's really kind of a unique having to learn that language.
Yeah. A lot of people think because I'm able to do a lot of this stuff or I've put a lot of this together that I have a lot of great knowledge when it comes to computers or all that sort of stuff. And I really don't. I'm telling you, it's just pure luck. I think I have most of this stuff together because my mind doesn't work in this direction as well, too. I'm a plant guy. I'm not a computer guy, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see here. Also,
Let's see.
Freebird was asking just a little bit ago too. What should we make sure we get started this week besides onions?
Okay, so in northern Indiana, zone 5/6, so really 4, 5, 6, 7, all those kind of zones. Right now is the time that you can start pretty much everything. So you want to have your peppers starting pretty soon or now.
Yeah.
You want to have your tomatoes definitely starting, in the next week. If they're already started, that's fine. If you got a good grow light set up, you want to make sure that you got good, powerful lights. Don't be starting too early if you've just got like a windowsill or something like that. You want to make sure that you got nice light. It all comes down to lighting. And if you're going to plant out cabbages, which I actually stopped, I'm actually not planting spring cabbages anymore, just because of how the heat. Because our summers come on so fast. We don't have like a temperate period, and so once the heat cranks up, when the cabbage or whatever kind of leafy green, Asian leafy greens, when the heat cranks up, when those are trying to ripen, they just are starchy and they're not flavorful. And I use the term buttery. Buttery, it tastes so flavorful and buttery, like butter.
Yeah.
The mouthfeel of butter, the sort of reminiscent of butter, that all comes from the fall. And so that comes from the cool weather. That comes from the frost, really, or the approaching frost. And so I like to plant. I like to plant all of. So this year I'm saving all the Asian greens until the fall garden. That includes cabbages. I'm doing cabbages in the fall garden. So, but for greens over the summer, what I am planting, and I'm going to be starting. Well, I just started the Yod Fa. Remember that, guys? It's also called Gao Lan, which is a Thai Chinese broccoli. It's Chinese broccoli, but it's like a Thai strain. So Yod Fa, YODFAH. Now that will, whoops, did we lose? Okay.
Oh, there we are. Am I back?
Yep,
Okay.
you're back. So the Yod Fa, the Gao Lan, the Chinese broccoli. Now that is very heat tolerant, okay? And so the magnificent thing about it is that compared to like the giant red mustard or the komatsuna or the even the shijimisa, all those greens that I promote because I love greens, stir frying all the time. That stuff will bolt. It will all bolt in the summertime because it didn't evolve in those areas where there's wild temperature swings. And Freebird's in Indiana, so she knows. Now, the Yod Fa, the awesome thing about that is that we eat all parts of the plant. So even the flowers. So if it bolts, it doesn't matter. It's really nice and delicious. So it's more like a broccolini or rapini. Do you know what those are? If you guys know what those are, it's like a Asian type broccoli. Long, doesn't form them big dense heads, but I cut that stuff off and stir fry it all summer long. So for my summer greens, I'm pretty much going to be doing Yod Fa, which I've started. And here in about another week, I'm actually starting the patty pan squash. I'm only growing one patty pan squash this year because they get enormous.
Yeah. Some plants will surprise you like that, especially some of them squash varieties. They can just really produce like crazy sometimes.
Oh, the white scallop squash, the North American, the Native American one.
Yeah.
That thing gets like 15 feet across and like 6 feet tall. I mean, just absurdly huge and produces dozens and dozens of the patty pan squash.
Yeah.
So,
let's see here. Freebird asked, Nate, do you wait till after the last frost to plant beet seeds in the ground?
Typically you can, and I do. I have, definitely. I actually succession sow beets, but guess what? Last year, for the first time, I started all my beets indoors, in pots. and they functioned amazingly. So I've got a whole tray of beets in these Bootstrap Farmer trays, cells, these 2-inch, or maybe these
2-inch. They look like
these are probably 2-inch squares. You get 32 of them in the 10 by 20 tray. And so I've got beets started in these. I got a whole tray. So I got 32 of them. Every one of them came up. They're under the grow lights right now. And I will transplant those out here in about another 3 weeks, probably, give or take. And then at that time, I will actually plant several of them by seed along next to it. So because I eat beets, we juice beets all summer long, and I make kvass and I make fermented beet, so we can drink it.
Yeah.
So we will take the beets and plant those ones and then start other ones. And now I'm debating, I'm probably actually not even going to direct sow those other ones. I'm still going to start them indoors or start them in pots. I'm just starting everything, literally everything except carrots and pole beans is getting started. And I've been doing it that way. I've been experimenting the past several years, and last year I finally committed to it. Everything was started up, and I had massive success doing it that way.
Yeah.
Which
pretty much everything. Varieties of beets do you grow?
My favorite type of beet is Cylindra. Now that is because if people understand beets, they will understand what I mean when I say they can taste like soil. They can taste really earthy, kind of like compact. Which a lot of people like, and I like as well. But the Cylindra beet is like sweet, almost more like a little like candy like. And so when you juice it, wow, really good for juicing. So that's my favorite. Also, bull's blood beet is a really good, nice round beet.
Yeah.
And then this year I'm experimenting with a new variety I found called Bettina, which is a combination. Yeah, it's from Baker Creek. So a Bettina beet, which is a combination. It's like a supercharged Detroit dark red. So we'll see. Well, I got high hopes for that one.
Yeah. The bull's blood one, I've had those. Those are really good too. Great growers.
And the leaves are so red.
Val was saying even cucumbers indoors.
Even cucumbers. Yep. Starting cucumbers indoors. And I am only doing, so this year, because I'm always overzealous with cucumbers. I'm always like, we're going to juice so many of them. And then, so I put two whole trellis of cucumbers, and we just have dozens and dozens and dozens of cucumbers just overflowing everywhere, going to waste and stuff. So I'm going to, tone it back a little bit, and I'm trying a new variety of cucumber called the Pioneer. And the Pioneer, are you familiar?
I haven't. No, I haven't tried it.
So this new variety is from Urban Farmer Seeds. Okay, so there's a local place called Urban Farmer Seeds. They're a great company, ufseeds.com, and they've got the Pioneers, which are like a hybrid. I think they are a hybrid, and they're supposed to be a pickling cucumber if you get them small, or also a nice slicing cucumber. So I'm going to plant 3 of those plants and then 1 market more on the same trellis.
Yeah.
And so that should pretty much cover me. That should be plenty of cucumbers. And yes, I'm starting them from seed, just like I did last year, and it worked perfectly. The thing is that you gotta understand your process. You gotta understand, how you can't let them dry out. So most people don't have success transplanting things like beets or cucumbers or winter squash because they don't have their system down perfectly. Once you get your system down and they maintain perfect moisture, they never become bone dry, and all of that kind of stuff, and you learn to coax them out of the thing and you tip them over, you can transplant them virtually undisturbed, and they have no qualm with that whatsoever. They don't even skip a beat. But the most important thing is you can't let them dry out, because things like cucumbers, if their root hairs dry out even one time, if it becomes bone dry one time, they die back, and they have to literally regrow. Yeah. And so they can stunt them big time. So yes, I do the
squash, viners, cucumbers, curcubits, basically they just don't tolerate much with their root systems. That's not, you want to be careful with them. That's why a lot of people recommend a lot of direct seeding, but you can, if you're careful enough and And like you said, don't let them dry out. Don't let those sort of things happen. Getting a head start can work out well as too. Teach Treats was saying Tahitian melon squash now.
In about another week, yes, Teats. So for you, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you even should grow it in that space, but maybe give it a try. Put it somewhere in the somewhere off to the side in your garden. Whoops, sorry about that. So yeah, the Tahitian melon squash, the melon squash, the watermelons, all of which I start now indoors because I got a killer setup, and I also just have the system down. But they don't like to be outside until the nights don't even get below 50 degrees, which for us, that will be the middle of May. I mean, so, and you don't they're not like tomatoes and peppers where you start them 8 or 9 weeks before you're going to plant them out. You just want to start those like 4 weeks before you're going to plant them out. So really like the first week of April, is as soon as we're going to want to start those. And for Freebird as well, the first week of April is when you're going to want to start all that heat-loving stuff like marigolds. You can start marigolds, zinnias, sunflowers, all that kind of stuff. You start even the second week of April.
All right. Excellent. Also, Big Will Dog was asking, should I uncover my garlic?
What do you got it covered with? If it's just straw mulch, no, it should all be coming up. Garlic is extraordinarily hardy, and garlic will come up through a tremendous amount of stuff. I mean, this much compacted straw, and it will find its way up through that. So I would say no need to.
Yeah, the only problem I've ever had was when I first did a leaf mulch, and I just piled leaves on top of it, and they just come together like paper, and it makes it really hard for them. So I had they've tried, but they'll turn when it comes down to it. So you want to watch some of that stuff that can really pile on top of them, but for the most part, they should pop right up through most any mulch.
That's a very good point. Yeah, the leaves. I always tell people never. I don't usually, unless you chop them up. I
chop them up. Yep.
Because they will form a thick mat, and nothing will come up through that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the lesson learned there, is if you're using a leaf mulch, is to chop it up. That way, again, it won't be able to really create that mat like it can do when they just lay on top of each other. And so that's really the only time I've really had a problem with my garlic not popping through some sort of mulch. It was doing that. All right on. Big Will Dog says nope, just straw. So
okay, straw. No, you'll be perfectly fine. I would just leave it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, I guess is this? We were asking, this Tahitian melon is for Canada and not be late. So I can start my Tahitian melon squash nowish for Canada and not be late.
So just
it's a little
remember
more north of you though. So
oh yeah, definitely more north. But Canada is strange. Just because they're further north, they're not always necessarily more cold. That some of the more northern places in Canada are actually a higher zone than me somehow. So it's real microclimate. It's different. Yeah. It's just different. But the in Canada, I would still say Big West pretty close. Yeah. I mean, they take a long time. The Tahitian melon squash take a full on, 110 days. So you want to make sure, give them as good of opportunity as possible. I don't have them right here, but you want to plant those in like a sort of big, not too big, but just big enough to get rooted, get started. Something like this is good for 4 weeks, so that it's going to be, just gives it that head start. Because the reason that we start like the cucumbers and the watermelon and the Tahitian squash indoors now is because all those things, they will put their 2 leaves out and they will just sit there and appear to do nothing for like a month. And then they'll just explode with growth. But during that month where they're just sitting there, those 2 leaves on the soil, they are very, very vulnerable to all kinds of little insects or just getting stepped on by the cat one time. My cat just rolls all over it. It's dead. That's it, And so, but during that time, they're actually putting roots down into they're putting massive roots down. That's how those plants do it. They pop their leaves up above, and then they use that solar energy to set their roots. And so they take that month to do that. And then once the roots are set, then they go and pop up.
Yeah.
But so you want to, that's why you don't want them to become root bound in the pot. You want them to just have a nice trajectory of easy growth.
Right.
Ooh, I see Teets is going to do it in his greenhouse. That'll be super cool. You'll be stringing that thing around, definitely.
Yeah, that would be fun. All right, everybody, as well too. If you are here and you're enjoying the chat and want to jump in the conversation and ask Nate a question here, definitely drop that in. If you could, though, too, drop them in with big, bold, capital letters. I like to ask for that so I can see them from the regular conversation, but I'll try to get these questions dropped in here as we can. Let's see here. MKP was asking, when is winter garlic ready to harvest? Planted them around November. Winter garlic.
Mm-hmm. So MKP, I'm not sure where you're at. That will depend. So when I go down to, so here in northern Indiana, it is ready. Garlic will be ready middle of June, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it will. You'll see them scapes sprout, and about 3 weeks after the scapes are coming up, that's when it's pretty much the good time. Good time to harvest. Although remember, I eat the scapes. Always eating them scapes. Super delicious. No peel summertime garlic.
That's why it's good to get the hard neck varieties, because those hard neck varieties are the ones that'll produce the scapes for you, and those are really, really delicious. You talk about stir fries and all that. It's just that is delicious in a stir fry for sure. MKP was saying zone 7B. So yeah, I mean June, late June. I early July, even for me, for some of my other varieties that I've got sometimes,
Okay. Nice.
I just try not to let them go too long is the big thing. Don't let them go too long, because then they'll start splitting up and they'll start wanting to start their second year phase that they will, like most alliums. And then, they'll split up and regrow again too. But I try not to let them expand too far, but you want to everybody's trying to get them nice big fat bulbs, you want to get nice big fat cloves and stuff like that.
And you will limit the storage capability. If you wait too long until that neck starts to get a little slimy and stuff, you'll limit the storage capabilities. So I like to do it just if you're growing hard necks, just a few weeks after the scapes start appearing.
That's why those scapes are so good, because they give you a good timer. Once they start really starting to stretch out, like they want to start going up, because they'll make a nice little curl, and then while they're in that curl, but once they start to stretch up, like they want to start moving towards flowering at that point, then you want to get them out. You want them. That's about the time you want them done.
That's right. Exactly.
The scapes make for a good timer. Whereas you got to be more on top of it, because the soft neck's not going to produce those scapes and give you that timer. But again, like you said, that neck will start falling, so you'll know then.
Mm-hmm. And I do consulting with the guys, a nice farm in Tennessee, Chattanooga area, and their garlic. So I can go by that, because we plant it in the fall, and then in the spring it is ready much sooner than mine. So it is ready but the end of May. So it just depends. Yeah, it just depends. Their garlic's ready much sooner, because they waited until my recommendation, and it was way too late.
All right, let's see here. All right, we got some questions coming in now. Let's see here. Oh, Dave was asking just a minute ago too. Hey, now I still have row onions that haven't put in yet. Could I plant them in pots so I can spread them to friends and family?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. The rowing onions are extraordinarily hardy. So now I don't know how you stored them. I mean, although I have had them just sit outside for a whole fall and winter, but if there's still life in them and they've not desiccated completely, yes, just put them into little pots and let them start to sprout, and they will grow. They will grow no matter what. So yes, spread them out.
Hand them out. Yeah, that's great. Share. That's a good idea. Nate, do you plant all your peppers together despite the variety, or do you plant different types away from each other? Oh, I love this question. It's one of my, I love growing peppers. That's one of my favorite things every year.
Oh yeah. Yeah, me too. I love peppers and I plant tons of different varieties, and I do not save the seeds from the peppers anymore because I have just because I've learned that peppers cross-pollinate very easily. And so I know people want to try and tell me, well, you got to develop a landrace garden, a landrace variety. That's not been my experience. So peppers are something that when I save seeds from planting multiple different pepper varieties, you don't get something new and fun and cool. You get something just totally bland and flavorless with no characteristics at all. And so your jalapenos will be bland, your sweet peppers will be bland, everything will just be bland, you know? And so that's been my experience for several years. And so I stopped doing that. And so if I grow more than one type of pepper, which I always do now, I'm just getting seeds. I'm just buying seeds every year because I'm not going to try. And now you can, okay, there is ways to do it though.
Yeah.
Now people will say, okay, take one of the flowers, wrap it in a pollen bag and keep it totally secluded from the bees and things. And then possibly you can get true to seed, once. For me, I'm just not even, I mean, if Armageddon came and we couldn't get seeds anymore, then sure, then I know those practices work. But I would have bigger fish to fry at that time. So until that time comes, I'm just going to keep buying my seeds from the guys that I love to buy them from and experiment with different peppers each year. I mean, Meyer Lemon sent me a whole handful of new pepper varieties I never even heard of. So I planted 2 of each of those this year. So we're going to have all different kinds of peppers.
Yeah. I've had several like mystery peppers, so like pepper varieties that volunteer pop up. I'll see those, from pods from the year before, but I don't ever keep those plants because again, I've done it before in the years past, and like you said, it just produces, and it's really weird how a lot of them produce this very similar looking type of weird pepper that, like you said, is just really bland. It's not much of anything, and so again, that's the same for me. I don't save seeds unless, of course, like you're saying, maybe there's these other extenuating circumstances you might want to do that sort of thing. Or I've ran into before, I had this really great variety of pepper that I really loved, and then I was getting it from this certain supplier, and then they stopped offering it and I couldn't find it anymore. And so I'm like, oh, but I really want to keep that one. So that might be one of those ones where you're like, I really want to keep this variety and I want to keep it going. You might take those extra steps, like you said, in isolating the seeds and stuff. Or pepper growers who sell seeds that you're getting seeds from, those are tactics they have to do and they have to use in order to be able to offer, true to type seeds for everybody as well too. But I want to grow all of mine all together, and I want to grow bunches of different varieties, and I want to try new ones because peppers are one of those, again, like most things, have lots of awesome varieties that have really great flavors and different types, than what you've grown before. So there's so many that you can choose from year in and year out. So it's always good to experiment and have fun with peppers instead of trying to save seed.
Yeah, and I save seeds from everything else, from so many other things. But the peppers, though, it's like, for example, I was growing poblanos and using that for smoked paprika for several years. But if I wasn't experimenting, and open to new things, I would never have found the Ivarsky pepper, the Macedonian roasting pepper, and that thing is unbelievable. It's unbelievable, not just because you can eat it as a sweet pepper, as like a fresh sweet pepper, but because of the particular way that the Ivarsky holds on to the smoke. There's something about it that when it is smoked and dehydrated, it unlocks a whole different flavor profile. And you can open the jar of Ivarsky peppers, months or a year later, and it still smells fresh, like nice campfire smoke. As opposed to the other peppers, they lose that. It just loses. It just has no kind of smell, So you find out things like that. And so that's why I'm growing a bunch of Ivarsky peppers this year.
Yeah, I have a few of those growing as seedlings right now as well too. I really like those. Those are one of those ones that, I have a handful of varieties I'll grow most every year because I just really enjoy them. These are ones that I really like, and then I have, again, I'll grow new varieties of most everything else. But a Dvarsky is one of those that when I was introduced to it, what was it? I was at Growing Up Garden, and they gave me some seeds of those, and I grew those the next year and just loved them. And again, really great. There's a new one I really like that's a really thick walled sweet pepper that I got from Baker Creek called Lesia. They grow these little hearts pretty much, and they are
Have you grown it before?
Yeah, 2 years now in a row. I just love them. They're another one of those ones that I just when they come along, you're like, oh, I got to keep those and grow those. And I actually bought a new seed for those this last year because I'm like, oh, I got to keep those around the garden for sure.
Okay, see, that's really interesting because I heard about that legendary pepper for several years, the Lesia. And then last year I grew it for the first time, and I grew 2 different plants of it. And they produced a lot of big, blocky, ox heart shaped peppers. But to me, for here in this garden, they were just, they didn't really have the flavor. I mean, everyone, the description is like the sweetest pepper known to man.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, we got to try that. And I did not experience. I'm not going to grow them again. But that's just my climate, my climate, my growing techniques, my conditions. For me, last year, the Jimmy Nardello was as sweet as a fruit. I mean, it was so unbelievably sweet. I just couldn't believe it. Everyone that I let try it was like, "What is this?" I was like, "It's a pepper."
There was one that I grew years ago called Dos Deslandes, and it grows like a big, long, almost looks like a hot red pepper, deep red color, like the Lesia, pretty much that deep red color, but it grows a big, long pepper, and it's kind of bunched at the top and looks like it could be like this just really hot pepper. But it's one of the sweetest ones I've ever tasted, ever grown. And those are like eating candy right off of the plant, and that's a variety I'm still trying to find seed from again, so I can grow it again. That's one of those ones that are like, that was really good. But again, I don't save the seeds, so there goes that variety. I can't find it right now. So eventually someone's got to be out there growing it.
Yeah, and when you find it, stock up on them. I just found a seed that I was looking for several years from a hybrid. So it's a hybrid pepper. So you won't be saving seeds anyways, but that doesn't really matter to me because I'm not saving seeds from peppers. But it is called Just Sweet, and it was the sweetest pepper and very, very productive. It's like an All-American Award winner. It was $15 for 10 seeds. And so very, very expensive. That includes shipping, but very expensive, but well worth it. I got 4 of those cracked and started right now. I got several packs just to make sure that they go into the vault so that they are. So I'm always having those peppers.
Let's see here. Just to clarify, Lisa was saying, but do you grow the peppers together or separate the varieties around the garden? I think what you're saying is similar to what I say as well too, is I want to grow all these different varieties together and have a bunch of different varieties growing throughout my garden, so I don't save the seeds. So yeah, we grow them all wherever, whenever.
Yeah, and so she probably is concerned because she hears about cross-pollinating. She probably might have in her mind thinking that it is a little bit like corn, because corn, if you plant like a sweet corn and a glass gem corn next to each other in the same season, they will cross-pollinate, and it will become this mutant sort of gross kind of thing. And so that you have to grow separately, but peppers are not the same. Peppers, I grow them all literally in the same bed. Or if you've seen my latest garden layout, my beds are 4x10. So we're gonna grow one bed of full of peppers. The very next bed's gonna be full of peppers, stuffed full of peppers. Both beds, 2 whole beds of peppers, right up next to each other, no problem. Yep. Yeah. Because all peppers are gonna have virtually the same requirements. So, if you need to do things, although my garden gets all the same treatment now anyways, I grow them all together. It's no problem.
Yeah, Meyer Lemons was saying though, how far do you want to keep them away if you do want to isolate them? He wants to isolate some fish pepper in the greenhouse. Would that work if the rest are outside in the garden?
The issue is going to be that it's the pollinator. So it's not like
Mhm.
corn where it's wind pollinated, you know, and you need
Yeah.
like a quarter mile, but it's
If you got
they
bees
say
going in and out of your
several
garden
hundred
and
feet.
in and out of your greenhouse, or any
Exactly.
of the other types of pollinators there, they could be carrying some
Mhm.
pollen from one of your other peppers. So
So
in isolation, you could grow them all together, but what you're doing is catching those buds and everything early, and then utilizing those what are they, isolation bags, or I'm not sure what they're called
yeah,
exactly.
but what I would actually do if I was in her situation, Meyer Lemons, and you really for some reason wanted to save the seeds from that fish pepper, I would build an isolation chamber. I would build
Oh,
something out of wood, and I would put bug netting. You know what you
yeah,
row
yeah,
covers. I would put the whole thing. The whole plant would spend its entire life under a box made of row cover, and I would plant it in a
yeah,
pot. This is if I wanted to do that, save the seed.
yeah.
That's how I would do it. I would make sure that the whole plant was isolated and that it never experienced a single pollinator.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and that way for sure you can take seed from any of the pods that you're getting off of the plant versus trying to isolate a single pod and having only a couple of them. Or
Mhm.
I've seen people who do isolate almost every single pod too, and they have those little bags all over the whole plant
Mm,
in
right.
order to make sure that they're isolating their seeds. But again, too, a lot of seed growers are small time seed farmers, and they don't have a lot of big space for a lot of stuff, but they want to offer as much as they can. So they
Mhm.
got them growing all over the place, just in little bags and everything like that. But if you want, like you said, I think that's a great idea, though. I would love to. In
Yeah.
fact, I want to
Just one
build some.
second.
I
1 second.
want to build something like that. All right, let's see here. Let's see here. Everybody got any more questions you want to drop in there? I'm trying to work through here. We're gonna get a little bag.
Okay, just check it out real quick because Bootstrap Farmer sent me this row
Oh,
covers. So this
oh
is the
yeah.
kind of material that I'm talking about. Uh, This is exactly what I would do. I would build a frame out of like 1x, and
There
then
you
I
go.
would staple this stuff to the whole thing. I would staple this all the way around the sides and everything, and grow it in a pot. And I think you will have total success if you do something like that. Yep.
Yeah, that's a great idea right there. And in fact, I think that would be cool looking. I would like to have like a little isolation pod.
Isolation chamber.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is the isolation chamber for sure. All right, let's see here. We had a question just a little bit earlier. Serena was asking, I have leeks growing in my seed starting tray, and they are 6 inches long and laying down. Should I trim or transplant? And if transplant, how long do I need to harden off?
So I personally don't have a lot of experience with leeks. I've just seen them grown, but I do know
Yeah,
what family they're in, and I know how the family, the characteristics of the family. And so, yes, I
yeah,
would trim them, and then I would transplant them a little bit deeper than you're thinking that you need to help
yeah,
support them. That's how I would do it, because
yeah.
that's how I would do any allium.
Right. I think leeks, though, I treat leeks a little bit different than other alliums.
Hmm.
In my experience in growing the leeks, I would start them similar like I would do with anything I'm growing in the fall.
Mhm.
So like I'm getting things started, say mid-July, early August if I'm doing certain things. Or with leeks, you could grow them through the summer if you can keep them from getting too much heat damage or anything like that. But they really take off and get thick and start growing as the season cools.
Mm.
So that's really my
Mm.
experience with leeks is that they do the best as the season's cooled. So I treat them more like a fall crop than I
But you
do a
you
summer.
have but that is like a very, very long season, right?
Yeah, they can be a pretty long season, but they'll grow in my area. Now, mind you, I don't have experience in cooler areas more north like you in 5 and 6
Hmm.
through because my winter is an 8B. So
Oh, okay.
we'll get some snow, we'll get some, maybe dip down close to freezing a little bit, barely, but a leak will handle most all of that. And as it starts to get really cool, that's when I notice they just start to really juice up and get fat, and they really start bursting out of the ground when it starts to get to the cooler time of year. That's
You
my
see-
experience.
Okay, good. So that's your experience. And Teets says here, I bury leeks deep. It makes for a huge white part.
Yes.
So good. Okay. So intuitively, I understand. That's what I thought that I would do. And
Yeah,
it sounds like you've done that, Teets.
Yeah, and the method too really is all I do is I'll take like the end of a broomstick or say your shovel or something like that, and I'll poke like a 4 or 5 inch hole, and then I'll take the leek start and I'll just drop it in the hole, and that's it. The roots will start getting down there, and it'll grow into the hole as it grows up through, and that's really where all that white part really comes. The really juicy, good part of the leek is in that part that you're burying it deep into. So that really gets you that. At least that's the techniques that I've worked and used for me. And again, my recommendation is keep them, care for them, get them in the ground and plant them, but you'll probably see them really grow really well more as you get to the cooler part of the fall. Yeah, I don't get I grew mine like I started them like, and get them in the ground, like midsummer, but I've done the spring and get them in the ground, and I just never saw much of a difference in what the result was, and they just sit there for and grow in the ground and don't do much during that early part of the summer, and until they start growing as it starts to cool. So, but I don't know if anybody else has got any experience as well too on that, because I'll also admit that I haven't grown leeks now probably for about 3 or 4 seasons though.
Yeah, it sounds like Rob does have experience. Says when planting leeks, dip a 6-inch hole and drop your plants into them. Don't fill in the holes. Just fill full with water and leave it. So yeah, bury them deep.
Yeah,
and leave it.
Excellent.
Now, I am seeing some questions, if you don't mind, that I want to get to.
Actually,
about Freebird.
Okay, let's see here. I'm going through here. Let's see. Did I miss Freebird's question?
Freebird says question, and then someone else commented about says that.
Oh, there it is. I see that.
So Miss Valmark said, "Good question about the watermelon." So they're asking about watermelon, raised beds or in the ground. So Miss Valmark says, "I'm starting mine in raised beds, and they will be able to sprawl a bit, giving them an entire fence area, about 5 melons." So for you guys that have seen my garden, I'm not growing the watermelon here. Okay, I would not be growing watermelon if I would not allot that much space in this garden to growing watermelon, because if I had, I've done it in years past, but I've got small melons like Sakata Sweet or Maduras melon or the Kahari melon. These are good melons that will climb. But if you want actual watermelon like the Alibaba, it's going to take a lot of space. And so a raised bed, if it's open to the ground. Now, if you guys have seen my raised beds, they're raised beds, but they're only about 8 inches tall, or 8 inches of soil, and they open right to the earth. So it's like a combination, to say, oh, that's a raised bed. Some people, when they say raised bed, they're talking about like a 3-foot tall thing that's got logs in the bottom and stuff like that. So I would not be growing watermelons in something like that necessarily, because watermelons have got a very shallow but wide fibrous root system. And so they like to be close to the surface, but really sprawl out wide. And so I am going to plant them at the Viking North plot. And that is where we're going to grow many different kinds of watermelons. So we do like a combination. We grow them on a tarp. We grow them on plastic. And so, or landscaping fabric. And so we'll do like a combination, we'll put like a bed, a small box in the center, maybe 2x2 or 4x4, and fill it with really nutrient rich stuff. In the past, it's been like horse manure and stuff. This year, it's just going to be Viking granular nutrients. And then we're just going to let it sprawl out that way. Yes. So they sprawl all over the place. So to Miss Valmark, you want to be real choosy on your type of melon. You don't want to be growing Alibabas if you're going to, if they're going to like climb on a fence or something like that. I forget what you said, but
You want
Yeah,
to get
you want
like
to
a
be real
smaller
choosy.
varieties, the ones that are going to grow more smaller, compact.
Yeah, and if you just have like raised beds, then the Sugar Baby Bush is a really good one. It produces like 3 to 4 medium-sized watermelons, but it only gets like 3 feet long. The vine only gets, it's like a 3-foot bush. So if I
Yeah.
really wanted to grow watermelons, I'd grow the Sugar Baby Bush here in these beds, and I would put in my 4x10 bed, I would put probably 4 plants.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's how I would do it.
Yeah, and they're talking to I'm going to try trellis my melons this year. I have hammocks ready for them. I am doing Sugar Baby. Yes. So those will be good ones. Like you said, smaller varieties, more so because of the plants and the root systems and that sort of thing is you want to be able to give them the best ability to produce a good juicy watermelon. And the bigger varieties are going to, like you said, they're going to need more. They're going to sprawl more. They're going to have that sort of thing for what they're going to require, more so than, like you mentioned there, the hammocks ready, or having something to hold them up. Because, again, with the smaller varieties then too, some of those vines can actually handle some of the weight and hold them. Whereas if you're trying to grow some of these big varieties or getting bigger varieties and you want to trellis them, yeah, there's no way those vines are going to be they're not meant to be carrying the weight for that type of size of melon.
They're definitely not. A lot of people getting issues with that, where they're going to grow it up a fence, and then the watermelon. If you try growing Alibaba up a fence, it would grow real tall and it'd be vigorous, and you'd start to see watermelons, and then there would come a point it would rain or something, and the watermelons would start to swell up, and they would just rip the whole thing. The whole vine would just rip down. Because they're like 30 pounds. I mean, they're massive.
Exactly.
That's no little tendrils is going to hold that, on there.
Exactly. Yeah, those plants aren't meant to hold that stuff up. Let's see, Myers. Cicada sweets in large raised bed worked well last year. Are you familiar with that variety, Nate?
Oh yeah. I've done that several times. I've promoted that. I do believe that is the one that we eat the skin as well, which makes it really nice. If you're only going to grow one, I think that's the one. I'm almost positive it is. But I eat that thing like an apple. It is delicious. Okay.
Oh, wow.
You can just crunch right into it. They're about that big, really sweet, like a honeydew kind of muskmelon sort of combination, that real honey kind of sweetness. Really delicious. My advice would be to only grow that one variety, because in the years when I've tried to grow multiple varieties like on the same trellis, it just doesn't work out in the same way. I mean, they can share diseases, they can compete for things. If you had success growing Cicada Sweet last year and you want them again, I would just grow them in the bed. If you wanted to experiment, you could, but then you would have different characteristics. I mean, if you did a Maduras, you would have a totally different characteristic. And so you wouldn't be able to tell the health of the plant. One reason that I love to plant, one type, and then in another separate area, if I could plant another type, is because when I read the plants, I need to be able to tell what is happening. So if I got different foliage from different plants all up in the mix, you can't tell what's happening in the same way. And so I would recommend to stick with the same one for sure.
Right on. So I saw earlier too in your live stream, you were talking a little bit about sweet potatoes.
Oh yeah.
You're growing some sweet potatoes. You were showing us those plants there. I wanted to actually mention what they were actually, because you've been showing us the pots, but tell us a little bit about your sweet potato experiment going on right now.
Yeah. And it's not, well, it is a little bit of an experiment, but it's just more the distilled knowledge from the years of experience. And that, so I just know what they want. They want screaming heat. Yeah. So you put them sweet potatoes on a heat mat at 95 degrees, and they will sprout in like a week. It's insane. And let them have a little bit of access to light. Okay. I don't bury them completely anymore. I never use the water method anymore. So I just do it, and they're exploding. Now, the thing that I am kind of experimenting with this year, I mean, we'll call it an experiment, but I know it's going to work, is that, so I'm taking them, because there's so many of them already, and I'm cutting them and rooting them in water. And then once they're nice and rooted, now I'm planting them actually in these pots, these Bootstrap Farmer trays, which I have links in the description of all my videos for that. So you guys can get those, my recent videos. And you can get these things and just put them in there. So once they got roots, I put them in there and then put the soil around them. And that is going to, they're already got roots coming out the bottom. And this is going to, I'm almost positive, it's going to make that whole transition time. Like when you plant sweet potato slips, they will just sit there for like a month and not do anything. You know, at least here they do until they explode with growth. But I think this is going to shorten that curve. I think that this is going to allow them to go in the ground and immediately start growing. So got big hopes for it.
I know. Sweet potatoes, again, I love growing them. I'm getting mine started as well too right now. And I was just going to mention again too, talk just a little bit about your recommendation. You go soil versus using a water method on getting your slip started, right?
I do now, yes, because the water method, it works. I did it for many years that way, but it takes so long to make them break dormancy. It can take weeks, it can take months. That's why I started them in February. I used to start them in February, and it can take 8 weeks before you even see sprouts on there.
Exactly.
You know, and so now that I've figured out what they want to be partially in the soil, and they want screaming heat, and they want consistent moisture and bright light. So I got them in a south-facing window on a heat mat, partially buried in about 5 inches of soil, and I keep them nice and humid, and they've got full-on blasting sun, and they're right next to. Not only do they got a heat mat, but they're right next to the vent for the heat that comes out, and so they sprouted like that.
Perfect.
So,
they seem to be loving whatever you're doing. You're gonna have massive vines before you know it. They're just growing around your house before you get them outside.
I know, and we still got 6 weeks before this stuff is going to. Before we can plant them out.
Right.
So I'm gonna be swimming in these things.
Yeah, one of the cool things too about the sweet potatoes is all the leaves are edible as well too. Those are good. So yeah, I mean, sweet potatoes are good all around. I like growing them, and one of the things also too is I've found that some of my best sweet potatoes were grown in some of like soil I never even really cared about. Like, you know what I mean? It's just that they just grow so well. They don't really need much. And like I said, I put some in I just put some in a bucket. I had some extra slips, and I put some in just this bucket of it was a big bucket thing of just old soil that I was dumping my old pots into, and it just grew like crazy, and had some of my best sweet potatoes just right out of that, versus trying to care for them or making sure I was feeding them and doing all this sort of stuff before. I was like, no, they didn't care about anything. Those things grow really well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you get better tuber production the more benign the soil is. The years that I've really fertilized that soil, worked in good nutrients and stuff, and put in the granular nutrients, man, I didn't get nothing but dozens of pencil thin little sweet potatoes. But the years when I didn't do any and made it real benign, big old fat sweet potatoes that store all winter.
Exactly, and it's what makes them so great, because I mean that's really like, especially for a first time or a new gardener, is just trying to figure things out, those types of plants where you can just plant them and almost forget them, kind of thing. As long as you got them in the right space, you're going to get that good sun, because again, like you said, they're heat loving plant. They're going to want a lot of good sun. You give them that and boom, they'll just take off.
That's right.
Yeah, right on. So what else you got going on in the garden this year? Let's talk a little bit about a Garden Like a Viking here before we let you go today. So got a whole new season coming up. You got anything kind of new planned for the channel, or any cool things you're looking forward to this year?
Well, yeah, as many of my viewers know, I'm really going all in on getting the website created and doing that myself. So the website and selling the Viking granular fertilizer, which will ship all throughout the country, the continental Alaska. the continental United States. We will ship, and that will be available Saturday. And so I got the logo made. So kind of more the business aspect of things, you know. Although we're totally got the whole revamp in the garden and stuff, but I know all that's going to work. I mean, I know. But more the okay, how do we turn this into like a sustainable long-term business where we can actually finance the homestead, which we're looking to get, you know? And so just making YouTube videos and relying on YouTube AdSense is not going to cut it, you know.
That's true.
It's so you got to do all these different kind of things, and so that's really what we're doing this year.
Kind of in the same boat with you as well when it comes to that, is trying to figure that stuff out. Like I said, I can grow plants. I can do all that sort of stuff. I ain't worried about those sort of things, but all this other stuff that goes along with some of this, you know, producing a show and turning this into a business and those sort of things, you know, whether it's the technical editing and all of that sort of stuff that's required, or, you know, the computer stuff, or just the business knowledge about what is going to work best for, you know, as we move forward type of stuff. Yeah, I'm in that very similar type of boat where I'm like, okay, I got to get this figured out. But and so there's a lot of focus on that this year for me as well.
Yeah, I think it's time for that, you know. It's
especially for you though. You got a really good thing going on there with Garden Like A Vikings, and I think there's a lot of potential for you and all of that. So seeing this stuff come together for you is just really awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel the same, and there's also going to be massive, you know, because I mean, when I say there's a lot riding on the garden, I say a lot, you know. Well, you got to look at someone's plants. You know, they can talk about growing, but show me your plants. You know, you got to show me the healthier plants. So, you know, I talk a big game about that, you know, but I also can prove it. And so I you know, that's what I mean when I say there's a lot riding on it. Like, I gotta have a healthy garden, and I will, of course.
Yes.
So, you know, that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, because we have a totally redone garden. I mean, the whole from ground up has changed. I tilled the soil big time, rearranged everything, and completely going with landscape and fabric and drip systems and all that kind of stuff. So all of which I'm familiar with, of course, from my time in Northern California, but I haven't done on this plot in the past 5 years. So a lot of things have changed, but the principles all remain the same, and we're going to grow some really killer plants.
Yes, that sounds great. And it'd be so much, again, too, always fun to follow along with you and what you've got growing on there at Garden Like a Viking. Like I said, it's just, for me, it's such a joy to be able to listen to your show and have your show as I'm sitting here preparing for my show and getting things ready. So I've always got you every Saturday right here, just listen in the background and all of that. And again, too, it's just been really awesome to see how all of that is progressing for you as well too, and also just really thankful for you participating in what we do here over at the Let's Get Growing as well too, because you've been such a big supporter and guest of ours here in the past as well too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, thank you. Likewise. And I promote what you got going on every chance I get, you know, and I always love being on here, and we'll be on here again, you know, no doubt.
Absolutely. I'll work on it. We got to get it. I was telling everybody, is like, you got to go back and check out our conversation we had with Mark from Self-Sufficient Me. That was such a really great conversation. And I love, again, too, to maybe find another pairing or something and get you back for another type of roundtable conversation, because those are always fun to kind of work off of each other and talk with each other in a group type of setting as well, too. So again, more and more of that, too, coming up as well, hopefully here in the upcoming season with Nate Muri from Garden Like a Viking, everybody. And thank you all so much for all of your questions, everybody, for keeping this conversation going. And if you haven't yet, which I would be surprised if there's anybody here in the audience right now who hasn't subscribed to Garden Like a Viking yet, but if you haven't, definitely get down that link below and go click over there, subscribe to Nate's channel, Garden Like a Viking. Check out his show. What time do you usually get that started?
That's at 12 noon Eastern time every Saturday.
Every Saturday, 12 noon Eastern time, right?
And I'm usually about 10 minutes late. You can set your clock by my lateness.
No, I'm always a minute or two
Yeah.
myself as well, but we get it going. We got great conversations every Saturday. It's always good to have you starting the conversation on Saturdays for everybody, and then over here on Let's Get Growing at let's see, that's noon. That would be what, 8 for me, or no, 2 for me.
No, that'd be 9 for you.
No, 2.
Right, 12 noon would be 9 in the morning for you.
Would it be? Yes, you're right. Okay, we're West Coast. So we got to get our time zone straight out here.
Right.
Make sure we get the time zone straight. But yeah, definitely go check that out, everybody. Thanks again, Nate, for being here and the great, wonderful conversation,
Yes,
sharing
always a
all this
pleasure.
awesome garden knowledge. And we'll see you again here on the show real soon.
All right, my friends. Have a good season, everybody.
Excellent. Thanks, Nate. All right. There we go. Another great show in the books today. Again, thank you to our guests who spent their time talking about gardening and everything growing on for them here this year. Figs, talking about those awesome figs earlier with Priscilla Burke from the Fig Hunter. And as well, again, thank you to Nate for spending his time with us today on the show. And thank you to everybody for joining with us today too, and you all taking your time to be with us, all the Viking tribe, all of you guys joining in on the conversation here today. It's so wonderful to have you. And again, thank you all so much for being here. I do want to make sure we mentioned that, like I said, we are here every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern, but not this Sunday. So just for everybody, we will not be here for a regular show on Sunday, but there is a show, there is the chat that will be open for everybody who's normally used to coming here on Sundays and hanging out. If you guys want to gather together and have a little chat or something during the time that we're here, that will be open for everybody for tomorrow. And then we'll be back next week. We've got new shows coming up this next week. Lots and lots of great things going on here with some really awesome guests. Next week on the show, we do have joining with us Resh Gala. Resh Gala will be joining with us, talk all about what she's got growing on in her gardens this upcoming growing season, as well as Paul from Guten Gardening will be returning again and will join us for our Are You Following Me segment for our Saturday show next week. And then on our Sunday edition of the show, we will have our good friends Kingstar from the Kingstar channel and Pepper Lovers community joining us from Texas, and our good friend Christopher Bransdahl joining us from up in Norway as he's getting his grow room all set up. We might get an even better look at what he's got growing in his grow room and all of that, as well as talk about all of the other things they're getting ready to grow in their gardens this year as well too. So join us for next Sunday edition of the show, and we'll talk all about gardening with our good friends King and Chris. Last week, like I mentioned too, we did have our monthly gardening book club and made our announcement for our next book club. We do have another announcement I've got to make this week concerning our monthly gardening book club, because next week we're going to do kind of a little switch. It just so happens that our monthly gardening book club on the third Sunday of the month in April happens to be Easter, and our good friend co-host Mark Rocher Colbert has some things that he needs to tend to that day. So we made a switch, and it just so happens to be that our monthly gardening book for next month is Gardner Scott. Gardner Scott Wilson will be joining with us to talk all about his book, Guide to Raised Bed Gardening. That is our book feature for our monthly gardening book club this month is Gardener Scott's Guide to Raised Bed Gardening. So what we're going to do is, because Gardener Scott usually joins with us on the second Sunday of the month for his gardening Q&A with Gardener Scott, where he answers all of your gardening questions with us, what we are going to do is we're just going to switch those. So instead of having Gardener Scott's Q&A on the second Sunday, we're going to do the book club on the second Sunday, and then we will switch and have Gardener Scott back on again. So we'll still get him 2 weeks in a row, just like we were planning. We'll just do the Q&A on the third Sunday. So we'll do a little switcheroo for our Sunday edition, second and third Sundays for our Q&A and our book club, because they're both featuring Gardener Scott. So we're really lucky that it worked out that way, so we can make sure that our good friend and co-host for the book club, Mark Boucher-Colbert, can go and do what he needs to do. NBC's got to get his Easter things done, but we will be here to talk and answer all of your gardening questions with Gardener Scott for that Sunday as well too. So a little bit of house cleaning on what we got coming up here on the show, and lots and lots of more great guests, like I say, every Saturday and Sunday here on the show, except for tomorrow, where we'll have our chat open, and then we'll be back again next week and weeks after that with many, many more great guests right here on the Let's Get Growing show. And if you are here with us still as we're finishing up this show, definitely, if you can, and if you haven't yet already, click that thumbs up, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for the Urban Gardener channel if you haven't already, as well as the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming videos, which we got some videos coming out this week for sure, as well as our upcoming live streams and live shows this next week as well too. Share with all of your garden friends, let them know about the Let's Get Growing show and all of our really fun gardening conversation, and definitely follow all of the links down below in the description to all of our guests. And like I said, go over there and go check out one of their more recent videos or one of their more recent posts on their social media, and leave them a comment and let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. And again, thank you all so much for being here. Just wonderful audience. So much great conversation from everybody today. And like Big Les Long Hair says too, we love to talk. I love to talk too, and I love talking with all these great guests and talking with all of you as well too. So again, thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of our conversation today, and I look forward to seeing all of you next Saturday. But you can be here tomorrow for the chat if you want, but I'll see all of you next Saturday.